An existential philosopher, Jean-Paul Sartre, once said, "Nothing in life is more paralyzing than the burden of infinite possibilities." I didn't understand what this quote meant until I realized I was living it every day inside my own head. As I began working on this talk, I looked at the name, TEDx, Ideas Worth Sharing. When put like that, it makes it sound like not necessarily every idea deserves an audience, a listening ear to hear what value it brings to the table. Of course, barring ideas formed with malice, I believe every thought, opinion, or viewpoint should have a podium to stand on. But in analyzing this single phrase, I didn't even begin making my talk. 10 seconds of nothing, but in imagining what something should and shouldn't be, became minutes, and then hours, without addressing the matter at hand. My speech. A glaring example of my thought process, or more specifically, overthinking. Let's talk relationships for a minute. I had this friend, we'll call her Nishi. Nishi and I had been close for 6-7 months by this time, and we were having an argument. Argument is a bit of an understatement. To me, it was more of a war. It got to the point when we were about to stop talking, completely. Obviously, I couldn't let that happen, being the peacemaker I am, so I decided I'd talk to her. On a random day, I began walking towards her, rehearsing every word in my head, the phrasing, the pauses, the tone, repeating it like a script I had to get exactly right. What if I sound too soft, too aggressive? What if she cuts me off? What if I make it worse? I got so lost in the dialogue in my mind, I didn't even realize I'd walked right past her. This moment stuck with me. Not just because I missed her, but because I almost didn't notice I missed her. For any of you wondering, we made up in the end. But that's what overthinking does. It makes you miss what's right in front of you while convincing you you're preparing for it. But that wasn't the only time. It wasn't even the worst. There came a point where I started realizing I was living inside my head, existing through mental scenarios. This is how I live most of my life. And I know I'm not alone. Why do we do it? Why do we overthink? Maybe it's a form of self-protection. If I can think through every possible outcome, I won't get hurt. Or maybe it's something deeper. Deep, right? Hopefully it feels that way to you too. Strange, isn't it? The word we use for things that hit us hardest. Deep. As if emotions were oceans and thoughts had pressure. How is it that a word so widely understood, so universal in definition, can shift so easily in meaning, depending on who's speaking or what they're speaking about? It's meant to signify something profound, meaningful, lasting. Yet, in conversation, it can describe anything. A moment, a memory, a passing mood, whatever moves the speaker at that moment. So, if its meaning changes with context, does its universal definition hold any weight at all? Or is it that the deeper a word aims to be, the more shallow it becomes when everyone gets to fill it with something different? But there's a catch though. Overthinking feels deep, but most of the time, it's just us spiraling in the shallow end, trapped in loops, afraid to act, afraid to feel fully, afraid to be wrong. And it costs us dearly without even realizing. You know, I searched up some synonyms to overthinking. Do you know what I found? To torment oneself. Another one, lose sleep, be distressed. This act of trying to configure everything to almost perfection when the state of impeccability is an illusion was weighing me down. At a point, my mom even had to ask, "So me, why are you trying to plan the role of a dyer?" I wasn't progressing with this seemingly meticulous mindset. In fact, I was doing the opposite. I started missing assignment deadlines in school. It took its toll on my social life too, blowing up non-existent scenarios, so I was afraid of an aftermath that didn't even exist yet. But worst of all, my sporting prowess was at risk. Every touch of the ball was met with, "What will my friends think of that touch? Will coach sub me out if I don't pass? Am I good enough to help my team?" Rather than simply looking up and going straight for the goal. And when you're still too long, life moves without you. I wasn't avoiding pain by overthinking. I was postponing it, stretching it out, reliving it in 1,000 mental drafts instead of just one real moment. But back to football, however. I got put on the bench, and my place in the team, not to even talk about starting 11, was anything but sure. Time and time again, I would get subbed in, play terribly, subbed out. Subbed in, freeze, play terribly, subbed out. I know at this point, most of you are expecting me to say, until one day I was blessed with a new mindset and everything changed. But that's a bit unrealistic, no? How can one do the same thing every day and one day everything changes? That's only half the story. There was a turning point, however. I began to notice how in certain situations, my actions could be a reflex, something you do without thinking, fast and infinitely repeatable, but most of all, controlled by the subconscious mind. So the present self, you, gets to reap its rewards. Still me, though not the version that paused 1,000 times. It's taken time, effort, and way more flop matches than I care to admit. But I've come a long way. I may not start every game now, but when I do start, it's different. I move with more instinct, more trust in my preparation, and less fear of every touch. But maybe that's the real win. Not perfection, but progress that no longer waits for overthinking's permission slip. Because here's the thing. Overthinking is what happens at crossroads. When fear pulls one way and instinct pulls the other. When action, change, growth, innovation all stalls because it requires uncertainty. We stand there stuck, trying to predict the perfect path forward. But we have to realize that no new road was ever discovered by standing still. So maybe the real breakthrough idea is in the decision to break the loop, to choose doing over doubting, moment over mental rehearsal. We talk a lot about crossroads like the moments of bold clarity, two clear signs, two distinct paths. But most of the time, they're foggy, blurry. And we spend so long thinking about which step is right. We forget that any step is better than no step at all. Overthinking will not go away. Not for me, and probably not for any of you either. But what we can do is stop letting it own our moments. We can learn to trust the work we've already done, the instincts we've already built, and understand that hesitation is not the same as wisdom. Innovation demands motion. And sometimes all you can do to get unstuck is choose before you're ready. So, if you're standing at a crossroads today, between action and anxiety, between the thought and the doing, here's your sign. The mind is a brilliant architect. but it was never meant to be your prison. Overthinking will always offer you 1,000 mental drafts of the moment, but life only needs one. The real innovation lies not in perfect planning, but in imperfect action. So leap, even if your legs shake. Speak, even if your voice trembles. Move, even if your mind begs you to pause. Because innovation, change, growth, all of it, they don't wait for certainty, they wait for courage. And sometimes the most revolutionary thing you can do is simply begin. Thank you.